Good morning, Masechet Pesahim, Amoud Yomi, Samech Chet. We are today in Samech Chet. So yesterday we were speaking about 3 levels of Tuma and 3 levels of sanctity in Jerusalem. So there is the holiest place is the Azara, the Beit HaMikdash itself. You know anymore?
Yeah.
The second level is the Har HaBayit, where the mountain that the Beit HaMikdash is on. Let's say right after the Kotel. There's like a big open space before you get outside. When outside of the Kotel, inside the Kotel, it's already the Har HaBayit. And then you have the whole walls of Jerusalem. And we said that 3 different types of people need to leave 3 different areas. So, for example, the Mitzorah needs to leave everywhere, leaves to Jerusalem completely. The Zav needs to leave the Beit HaMikdash and can stay in the Har HaBayit. And the Tamimet, person who touched the dead corpse, he needs to leave just the Beit HaMikdash. He can stay in the Har HaBayit. So again, the Mitzorah needs to leave the whole Jerusalem. The Zav, Mitzorah is like a leopard, right? He has different things on his body that makes him like a spiritual illness. And the Zav is a person that's having seminal emissions and he's having a certain liquid coming out of his brit, and he's called the Zav. He needs to leave also the Har HaBayit. And then you have the third one, which is called the Tamimet, the person who touched a corpse. He needs to leave just the Beit HaMikdash. Okay. We also said that the pasuk doesn't say Zav, Mitzorah, and Tamimet. It says Kol Mitzorah, Kol Zav, Kol Tamimet. The word Kol is adding extra people on this. So when it says Zav, not only a Zav has to leave the Har HaBayit, that means he has to leave the second level. Also a Bal Keri. Bal Keri is a person who has seminal mission. Person who has Zera come out of his body. That's called the Bal Keri. So he also needs to leave. But Bal Keri cannot go into the Beit HaMikdash. No, he can't go into the Beit HaMikdash. He can't even go into the Machane Leviyah. He can stay in Jerusalem, but he can't stay in the Har HaBayit. He needs to leave. And who is that? The Bal Keri. Okay? And yesterday, at the bottom of the page, Samech Zayin Amoud Bet, we had a Braita that connected the Bal Keri to a Tamimet. And we thought that we're going to connect the Bal Keri to the Tamimet in the place where he has to leave. So the Bal Keri is going with the Zav. He has to leave. You guys get it, right? The Bal Keri, you guys got it? Everybody got this? So the Mitzorah needs to leave Jerusalem. The Zav and the Bal Keri need to leave the area of the Har HaBayit. And the Tamimet needs to leave, and the Tamimet and the one who touched the dead animal needs to leave just the Beit HaMikdash. So we tried to compare yesterday that the Bal Keri, actually there's a Braita that says that the Bal Keri in the Reish of a Braita says the Bal Keri is like a Tamimet. Tamimet needs to leave only the Beit HaMikdash, so Bal Keri only needs the Beit HaMikdash, but he can stay in level number 2. And then we said no, we connected for a different way. We connected to say that the Bal Keri gets, the Tamimet gets Metameh even by honest, even by accident. The Bal Keri will also get Tameh by accident, meaning even if you didn't try to get Tameh, you had Keri, you are Tameh. Now we're saying we're going to try to contradict this, Meitive. So the last word in line, Samech Zayin Bet, is Meitive. Meitive, Bo'er Nida, Ketamimet. So the same Braita, which we just said, has a Sefer. And the Braita says a person who sleeps with a woman who is a Nida. If he did that, he is, the Braita says, he is like a Tamimet. So he is equated to a person who's on the lowest level of Tumah, just somebody who touched the corpse. Somebody touches the dead body, it's called Tamimet. So if a person is Bo'er Nida, he's the same, Bo'er Nida is the same as the Tamimet. And this is the same for the Braita. Nemai, what is that for? When we say they're the same, for which purposes? Inimade Tumatam, you want to say how many days they are Tameh? Hai Tumat Shiva Ketibe, Hai Tumat Shiva Ketibe. Well, there was 2 psukim that speak of the Tamet and speak about the Bo'er Nida, that they're both Tameh for 7 days. There's a pasuk that says that a guy who touches the dead corpse, he will be impure for 7 days. And the pasuk that says the person goes with a Nida. He sleeps with her by accident or on purpose. He's tameh for 7 days. Can't go into the Beit HaMikdash for 7 days. So you see, that can't be what the Braita means to say that they're connected. They're not the same in that for that purpose, because we already know that from Suki. It must be for a different purpose. Well, it must be that they're similar in terms of where they have to leave. So when you are tameh, where do you have to leave? Well, the tamimet, we know where he has to leave. He has to leave the macheh. He has to leave the Beit HaMikdash, but he can stay in the Har HaBayit. He has to leave the inner area, but he can stay in the outer area, number 2. Well, we don't know where the Bo'er Nida has to leave. We know he's tameh for 7 days, but where does he have to go? So if we say they're the same, so it means he has to leave also only the Azara. He doesn't leave the Har HaBayit. He doesn't leave number 1. You have green, yellow, and red. He has to just leave the green. He can stay in the yellow. So the same thing with the Bo'er Nida. He can stay in the yellow. The Gemera says, and that's true. Reisha Nami. Like we said before, the Braita, this is the Seifa. So the Braita is telling us that the connection between the Seifa, the two things over here, between the Bon Nida and the Tamimet, is that they're in terms of where they have to stay, where they need to leave. So the Reisha also, when we said before, like I told you, that the Barkeri is like the Tamimet, it's also for the place where he has to stay. And the Barkeri can also leave just the Haraba, just the Azara. And the Gemara says, no, Hakedeita. I'll explain one more time. What did we say yesterday? We said there is a Braita. Braita has two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 says, Ban Keri, a person who had seminal mission, is the same as the person who is the Tamimet. What do we need that for? What relationship is it? So we said that this is just to tell us that it's not to do with the place where they have to leave. The Tamimet needs to leave only the Beit HaMikdash. So the Barkeri also needs to leave only the Beit HaMikdash. Not like we said before, that the Barkeri needs to leave level number 2. He needs to leave even the Harabait. Isn't that true what the Braita is saying? No. This is to tell us what is the similarity, that he is Metameh Be'ones by accident, he is Metameh Be'ones by accident. The Barkeri, whether he jumps and he has Keri, or whether he does it on purpose, he's tameh. The guy who touches an animal, that person, he's tameh even if it's by accident. That's what it's for, but nothing to do with the place where he has to leave. The Barkeri, we are saying always, he needs to leave the yellow level. He needs to leave the Harabait. He needs to leave the Machaneh Leviyah. And it's not a kusha from that Braita. But the problem is we just saw the Seif of the Braita saying a boer nida, a person who goes with a woman that's nida, and he is like the Tamimet, and that can only be for purposes of where they have to leave. The Tamimet needs to leave the Beit HaMikdash, the boer nida needs to leave the Beit HaMikdash. If the Seif is talking about where they have to leave, so the Reish is also talking about where they have to leave. And the Gemara says, no, this is talking about this, and this is talking about this. We're ending up with the Halakha. This is what we want to know today. Where does Barkeri have to leave? He has to leave even the second level. It's a big chiddush. It's a chiddush. I'll explain. Tamimet is the lowest level of tuma. Why? Because it's nothing to do with his body. There's a higher level of tuma. It's a zav. It comes out of his body. And there's a higher level of tuma. It's a mitzorah. Mitzorah has to do a lot of things. He has to be alone. He has to let his hair grow. He has to rip all his clothes. So each level of tuma will make you leave a different place. The lowest level of Tumah only needs to leave the Beit HaMikdash, but he can stay in the Harabait. The next level of Tumah needs to leave the Harabait, but he can stay in Jerusalem. The Metzorah, he's the higher level of Tumah, he needs to leave even Jerusalem. The Barkeri, how Tameh is he? He's not so Tameh. It's one day, and it's not such a big thing. He's not like Tameh for a lot of reasons, but still he needs to leave even Machaneh Leviyah. He needs to leave even the Harabait. He can't stay in the Harabait. He can stay in Jerusalem. So he's on the second level. So we're trying to challenge that always. We were trying to think that
it's not a zav, it's two different things.
Exactly. But where do we know the halachot of the zav? It says kol zav. But the pasuk says kol is to include the barkeri. So the barkeri is the same status of the zav. You might have thought not. That's what the Gemara is going to ask now a question. Meitive. Metzorah hamur mizav. So we have a braita that says a metzorah is more strict than a zav. Vezav hamur mitamemet. And a zav is more strict than a tamimet. So we have the highest level is mitzorah, then it's a zav tamimet. Yatsa barkeri, the exception is barkeri. Shetameh met hamur mimenu. But even though the hamur, the tamimet is more hamur. Tamimet is tameh for 7 days. Barkeri is tameh for how many days? 1. So what do we say? Mitzorah, zav, tamimet, and the exception is the barkeri. Because the tamimet is more than the barkeri. What does it mean yatsa? Ma'alav yatsa miklal zav, ubari klal tameh. So we're going to change it, even though it's coming from its body. We're going to put him in the lower level. The barkeri, we're going to put him in the lower level, like the tamimet. And the Gemara says, da tamimet hamur mimenu, umutar b'machneh leviyah, umatar b'nevinyah. So we see that the tamimet is more machmir than the barkeri, and still he's allowed to be in the harabait. So we should also let the barkeri be in the harabait. And the Gemara says, lo, yatsa mimachneh tamimet v'nichnas lemachneh zav. Actually, no, the exception, that's not how we read the Braita. It's an exception. It's an exception to the rule. Really, the tamimet is more machmir than him, is more tamim than him, and we're putting a chum on the barkeri that he can't stay in the machaneh leviyah in the harabait. Why? V'afagav demamet hamur mimenu demutar machaneh leviyah nemai dedamene medamene. And the reason is The same way that the zav, it comes out of his body, the emission, well, the bar keri comes out of his body as emission. This is a spiritual illness. Isn't this actually something healthy to have children? Still, since they're similar in that case, we're putting the bar keri in the category of the zav, and the zav cannot stay in the harabait, and the bar keri can also not stay in the sabait. And by the way, that's the halakha. The halakha is, that's we're finishing here with this, that the bar keri is level 2 of tuma, even though it's only one day. Even though it's one day, he can't stay in the harabait. So that means that if people now, they're playing games, and you know that today you can go in the hotel and you can go over and you can actually walk in the harabait. And there's people that can go in, and before they weren't allowed to pray, and now they're even praying. It's getting, they're taking over a little bit that they're allowed to be in. But the government wasn't allowing. If a bar keri can't go there. Bar keri. He has to be tovel, and he has to make sure that it's not 24 hours. So he has, bar keri is the person who had zera. He had defect, he had zera, he had sperm, he had semen came out.
Even with his wife.
Even with his wife, even beheter. Bar keri can't go in the harabait. So people are playing around and going over there. It's a big issue. Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yitzchak. Okay. So there was somebody, Tani Tana he used to be students that used to remember Mishnayot Bal Peh and Braitot Bal Peh. And the Rabbi would tell him, okay, start saying Braitot Bal Peh. And he would start saying, there was no books. So there was people that knew everything by heart. But not always they knew the pshat. People can remember everything about Pshat. The pshat they don't always know. So this Tani Tama was saying instead of Rabbi Yitzchak. Tani Kamed Rabbi Yitzchak bar Dimi. Let's read the pasuk together, Gimel. Ki haya ibecha ish asher lo yetaor. Mikra Laila. There was a person that had a Mikra Laila, he was a bar keri. What does it say? V'yatsa el michutz mahane. So we say he needs to leave the mahane. Which mahane? It doesn't say. He needs to leave the camp. Lo yavo el tocha mahane. He cannot come into the mahane. He cannot come into the camp. So the pasuk says, "Yatzad michutz mahane, zo mahane shchina, lo yavel tocha mahane, zo mahane reviyah." So we have two psukim. Lo, it has to say yitze, you need to leave the mahane. Lo yavo el tocha mahane, and don't come into the mahane. Mahane is the camp. So the Tanita, the student was saying, the first one is to tell you he leaves mahane shchina, the Beit HaMikdash, and the second one he leaves mahane reviyah, the second level, which is really for us the harabait. In the time of the Mishkan in the desert, there were 3 levels were the Mishkan, Machane Reviyah, which we spoke before, that's living, and after that is the Machane Israel. So we see over here that the pasuk says he needs to leave the Shekhinah and he needs to leave also Machane Reviyah. So that's what we see with the bar keri, he needs to leave 2 places. The Gemara says he doesn't like what he told him. Mikan bar keri shechutz the shtei machanot. Amar le akate ol lo aliyate afkite. 1 second. The pasuk says he leaves. It never spoke about him going into the Machane Reviyah. You know, you cannot leave the Machane Shechina if you don't go into the Machane Reviyah. It's all surrounded. So if you're in the middle, you need to leave. The Harabait is surrounding the whole Beit HaMikdash. So the pasuk says, leave here. And you're explaining it means leave the Machane Shechina. And then you're telling me, leave, don't go into the Machane Reviyah. It doesn't make sense the way you're explaining the pasukim. Because by leaving here, you get into here. And you're already telling me that he's leaving here, but you didn't tell me he gets into here. So it doesn't make sense the way you're explaining the pasuk. And another way explaining it says, you never got him out. Now you're talking about coming in. Meaning, what did you tell me? Leave the middle one and don't go into the second one. 1 second, you never made him get out of the second one. How could he not be going in? The way you're explaining the psukim doesn't work. So he says, Ela ema michutz de mahane. So the first pasuk, what it means is machane zo machane leviyah. When it says take you out of the mahane, take you out of the machane leviyah. If you were in the machane leviyah, if you were in the level 2 area, you got to leave that area. And what does it mean? Lo yavol tocha machane zo machane shchina. And don't go into level 1 area, level A. And that's how he learns the psukim. Matkif la Ravina. Ravina says, Ema ay divad le machane shchina. 1 second. Maybe the bar keri only needs to leave the Beit HaMikdash. And there's 2 psukim saying the same thing. And why would you need 2 psukim the same thing? You know, sometimes you can have a pasuk. What did we just say? 2 psukim telling us 2 different things. Leave the middle and leave green and leave yellow. Maybe it all means leave green. Maybe it's only leave level 1. And it's telling you in a lo taseh, don't go inside, and in naseh, leave it. Leave it, don't go in. But it's all the same thing. Why would we do that? Why would the Torah give a naseh and a lo taseh, like we spoke before? A lo taseh, you get makot. A naseh, you don't get makot. to wear. If you eat non-kosher, you get makot. If you didn't put on tefillin, you don't get makot. Makot is only when you do a lo taseh. So maybe, and when we put a lo taseh and a seh together, so maybe it's only one. You don't get makot even on the lo taseh. So maybe this pasuk is only talking about the machane shechina. It's not talking about both. So the Gemara answers, Im ken lemakra v'yetzeh el chutz lemachane v'lo yavo el toch v'lo yavo el toch amane lamani shma mina niten lo machane acheret. So to say that it's all one thing, it wouldn't have said it that way. It would have said, leave the mahaneh velo yavo. If it's all talking about green area, so it would say, leave green and don't come back. If it says, leave the mahaneh and don't go into the mahaneh, the extra word mahaneh is showing it's a different mahaneh. So it must be talking about green and yellow. It's not only talking about green. So here we see again that the pasuk is talking about that the Bar Keri needs to leave the mahaneh leviyah. Bar Keri is strict, he needs to leave even the Harabait. Okay, now we're going back to what we said in the Mishnah. Remember we said in the Mishnah, we're speaking about Shabbat and we're talking about the Korban Pesach. On Korban Pesach, you're allowed to be Mehalel Shabbat. You're allowed to shech the animal, the Korban Pesach, you're allowed to take the blood and you're allowed to sprinkle it, you're allowed to do a lot of things. And one of the things you're allowed to do over there, it says, Umichui keravav. You're allowed to what's called Michui keravav. What is Michui keravav? You're allowed to do something over there which is usually Asur on Shabbat, you're allowed to do it on Shabbat. So what is that? So the Gemara says, "My michui keravav." Rav Huna amar shemenakvin bisakin. You're allowed to take a knife and you're allowed to pierce the intestines of the animal. You shech the korban pesach. You take out the stomach, and when you're taking out the stomach, you're leaving it there. I'm not sure which point you're doing it, but you're taking out the excrement. Every animal has excrement. He ate, so it's turning into perish. If you leave it inside there, by the time you get home, what's going to happen? It's going to rot. It's going to ruin your whole meat. So you're allowed to take out the excrement, and piercing a hole is called dash. You are doing an isur doraita. To take something from something else, it's asur. If you have a kernel of wheat and the wheat is surrounded by husk, and you take the kernel from the inside out, you're just in an avirav dash. So here too, you're taking the excrement outside of the stomach. That should be asur, but you're allowed to do it for the korban pesach. That's the first opinion. Rav Chia Barav Amar Shirka Demaya. You're allowed to Shirka Demaya Dinafka Gavdurka. There's a certain liquid, Dr. Yomi.
It refers to the removal of the putrid slime contained in the intestines, which emerges only by scraping with a knife.
Very nice. So you're scraping there's like a disgusting liquid over there in the stomach, and you're allowed to scrape it off of the animal on Shabbat, even though that is called probably mimachek. It's another issue doraita. I think it's mimachek, mifarek, maybe. I wonder what it says over there if you have in English, which melachan is. But either way, you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. You're allowed to take this disgusting slime, this putrid slime, from the stomach. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Elazar, Ma'itam Edechia Barab. How do we know that michui? Because what did the Mishnah say you're allowed to do michui?
Shirka.
Shirka?
No, that's the slime. Sorry, what is the translation? No, sorry.
Okay, so how do we know that what the Mishnah said is called michui? How are you allowed to do michui? And what's michui? Removing the disgusting slime. How do we know that michui means disgusting? So the pasuk says, Dichtiv harvot mechin garim. So there's a pasuk that says, let's read the whole pasuk together in Dalit. It's in Yeshaya. It's talking about when the Mashiach is going to come. V'ra'u kivasim kedaberam. So the sheep will graze like we've spoken. V'harvot mechim garim yochlu. And the ruins of mechim, we don't know what's mechim, the garim, which is the tzaddikim, who are like, just a ger, they're just temporary here in this world, they will eat it. What does that mean? So the Gemara says, my mashma, kidim and Yosef. Translation of this pasuk is, v'niskehem dirisheya, when the Mashiach comes, so all the assets and all the goods and all the nechasim, the items that they own, the reshaim, tzadikiya yichsenu. Who's going to get them? The tzadikim. So you have nice buildings, you have houses. When we got over Jerusalem, all the reshaim they left, and we took their houses. That's where we got. The old city was living by Arabs. The old city is probably the highest real estate in the world today. To buy something in the old city, very expensive. And where it was the Goyish one. So Mashiach is going to come, and we're going to take back Israel, and we're going to take back other things, and they're going to run away. But either way, what do we see over here? The harvot mechim. Mechim is the reshaim. The reshaim is called mechim. So we see over here that the word mechim, which is like what our Mishnah says, michui, is wicked, bad, evil. It's like evil, dirty slime. So how do we know that the Mishnah, when it says you're allowed to be michui of the stomach, michui is taking away the slime, because we see over that the tzaddikim are going to get the things of the mechim. Who's the mechim? They're the rishaim. So it's evil, negative, so this is negative. So the word michui is negative, and the slime in the stomach is negative. When the Mishnah said you're allowed to get the slime, that's what it's talking about. The Gemara says, now since we're talking about that pasuk, we're going to discuss the different parts of that pasuk. Vera'u kevasim kedaberam. So the sheep are going to graze like we've spoken. What does that mean? Kemedubar. Vera'u kevasim kedaberam. Amar Menashe Barmiya Amar Rav kemedubar. What we just spoke, we're speaking it again. We spoke the sheep, the sheep, which is like the Am Yisrael, they're gonna graze, like we spoke. Where we spoke that the tzaddikim are gonna get the Rishaim's things. So the same pasuk many times says things over and again. You're gonna read many times in Nach. You're gonna see many times the Mefarshim explain the pasuk is saying over the same thing twice in a different language to reinforce it. We say it this way, we say it this way, so it's all the same thing. So the whole pasuk says, read again pasuk. Vera'u kevasim kedaberam. So the sheep will graze like we've spoken. The harvot mechim, and the good stuff of the rishaim garim yochlu, the tzaddikim are going to eat it. So what is the first part? The first part is the same as the second part. The Gemara doesn't like that. Amar Abaye veharvot mechim garim yochlu. Mai kamedubar bam Amar Abaye veharvot mechim garim yochlu. Amar li Rava bishlam iketi veharvot kedekamar. Hashle dichti vecharavot mitachini. That would be good if there would be no vav, but there's a vav in the pasuk. Sorry. Yeah, the vav is separating the two things. Veharvot, meaning it's not the same thing being repeated. Meaning the fact that we say veharavot, so the sheep will eat and the tzaddikim will get. It means it's two different things. So what is the first pasuk? And Amar Rava kederav Hananan. Amar Rav Hananan. Amar Rav atidin tzaddikim shechiyu et amitim. The tzaddikim will get to a certain level when Mashiach comes that they will have the ability to resurrect the dead. How do we know that's true? From the pasuk Vera'u kevasim kedaberam. The sheep will graze like we have spoken. What is that? Ketiv hacha u'u kevasim kedabram. So we're going to be going on the word Vera'u, on the grazing. Uchtiv hatam yiru Bashan v'Gilad. There's a pasuk that says that there is a grazing by Bashan v'Gilad. Who is Bashan and who is Gilad? Bashan kimei olam. What is that? Bashan ze Elisha. Habba mina Bashan. So Elisha Navi is called Bashan in the pasuk. Why is Elisha called Bashan? Because he comes from the city of Bashan. Shneimar v'yani v'shafat beBashan. Two people, Yani and Shafat, were in Bashan. And Bashan and Shafat is the father of Elisha. Uktiv pe Elisha, po Elisha ben Shafat. So here is Elisha, the son of Shafat. So Shafat is the father of Elisha. And Shafat comes from Bashan. So Elisha comes from Bashan. So when pasuk says that Yir'u Bashan, it's talking about Elisha. Asher yatzak mayim alidei Eliyahu, that he poured water on the hands of Eliyahu. Gilad is Eliyahu. Gilad is Eliyahu Navi. How do we know? Shenimar v'yomer Eliyahu hatishbi mitoshvei Gilad. Eliyahu Navi comes hatishbi. That's from the city of Gilad. So when the pasuk says Yiru Bashan v'Gilad, it's speaking about Elisha Navi. And what is the halakha? That Eliyahu Navi resurrected the dead, and Elisha resurrected the dead. We have twice in scripture that they both resurrected the dead, they both did Chatamitim. So since the pasuk says Yiru, it's talking about Elisha and Eliyahu, and the other pasuk says Yiru kevasim. The kevasim are speaking about the tzaddikim of the sir. So here Yiru and here is Yiru. Whatever Elisha did and Eliyahu did, the tzaddikim are going to do. Tzaddikim on a less level, they're not able to do mechayimitim, but soon the tzaddikim, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be that the tzaddikim are going to be level of resurrecting dead people. That is the level of the tzaddikim that they will eventually be. The Gemara says, Amar Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Yonadan, Atidin tzaddikim shechiu mitim. Again, we're going to have this in another teaching. The tzaddikim will eventually be able to do tchiyat mitim. Shenemar od yashuvu zekinim uskenot bechovot Yerushalayim. The pasuk says that there's going to be a time when this old people, the skenim and the skenot, old men, old ladies, will be living in Havot Yerushalayim, v'ish misha'anto biyado, and they will be so old that they're going to need a mishenet. Mishenet is like a staff, a walker. An old guy, he could be healthy, but he needs a walker. His legs might, give out. So the walker is what the old people are going to have, and this is speaking about the skinim in Yerushalayim, and that's the drash, but that is the simple pshat. But the drash means there's going to be long lives. We're going to be in Israel. We're not going to have problems from enemies. We're going to live long, healthy lives over there. Amen. Here this says, but here mirov yamim uktiv v'samta mishanti al pianar. You know, and Nishan Avi, when he sent Gehazi to resurrect a certain boy that died from the son of the Shumanit, he gave his staff to Gehazi, and he told Gehazi, put my staff, my mishenet on his mouth, and he's going to wake up. And so that was, so you see the mishenet is to resurrect the dead. So since we said over there, this old people in Yerushalayim will have mishenet, it's the same mishenet, the same staff as Elisha. Elisha resurrected the dead, so they're also going to resurrect the dead. Una Rami Ketiv. Una says, we have a problem in Psukim. One pasuk says, Bila hamavit na netzach. We will put away with death. There will be no death anymore when the time Yot Mashiach in the Olam Haba. Ukidiv ki anar ben meya shana yamut. Another pasuk says, there will be a young guy, 100 years he's going to pass away. That means people are going to live long lives. He's going to be considered young at 100 years. Meaning, if a person will die at 100 years old, he's considered a young person. Today, if a young person passes away, 20 years old, etc., so a young person is going to pass away at a young age, so we call him a nar. But in the time of the Beit Hamikdash, in the time of Yemot Mashiach, a young person is going to be called the guy passed away at 100 years. So 1 second, you told me the pasuk is going to no more death, and here you're telling me people are going to die and going to live long lives. La kasha kan bisred kan bakum. Yes, no problem. The Jews will not pass away, and the Goyim will pass away, but the Goyim will pass away at long lives. The Goyim will have long lives, and the Jews will not die anymore. The Gemara says, what is Goyim doing around over there? What do we need the Goyim in those times? It says, that the strangers will come, and they will take care of your sheep. The Bnei Nekar, the Goyim, Ikarem, they're going to take care of your fields. Right now, what do you do in the day? You go open a store. You go work at your place. That's chavad for the Jews. That's only for right now. Mashiach's coming. You're only going to be in Kolel, Bet Midrash, Itbodedut, Chatzot. You're going to go to the Shir Mashiach. You're going to go to Kever Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. All of Am Yisrael will be full-time tzaddikim.
Oh wait, won't Shimon Bar Yochai be back?
Yes, you will. So you're going to go hear the Shir Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You want to hear the Shir Mashiach in the morning.
There's no more Pesahim, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. So you're going to go see Rav Shimon, you're going to go to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to be al tzaddikim. But who's going to take care of the world? Who's going to take care of the roads? Who's going to take care of the business? The Goyim. The Goyim are going to take care of all the mundane things. Esav is going to take his role to do the Asiyah. And Am Yisrael is going to be the spiritual, the Avrechim. The same way you have in Am Yisrael today, we have Avrechim and Batim. Soon it's going to be, all of Am Yisrael is going to be like the Bnei Torah, the ones learning all day, the teachers of Torah. They're going to be the teachers. You have 15 million Jews, you have 7 million people, 7 billion people. 8 billion people. So you're going to need a lot of teachers for the 8 billion people. Who's going to be those teachers? They will be Kalal Yisrael. A little bit more. I think we'll stop here. Chazak.